This is Israeli Technology Founders Speak, a podcast of conversations with successful Israeli high-tech and biotech entrepreneurs. With your host, Avraham Hermon. Sharon Barak is the president and founder of Solutum, an Israeli clean tech startup that is solving the plastic pollution problem by making a biodegradable alternative to plastic. Avraham sat down with Sharon to discuss how she came up with the idea, got funded, the advantages of running a startup in Israel, the challenges of being a woman in business, future goals, tips for startup founders, and much more. This podcast is a creation of J.M.B. Davis Ben David, an intellectual property law firm serving clients around the world. You have great innovations. We keep them safe. It's not enough to just have a great startup idea or innovation. If you don't legally protect your innovations, products, and brand, anyone can claim them as their own. We keep your great innovation secure. Learn more by going to jmbdavis.com. That's jmbdavis.com.
I'm sitting with Sharon Barak, and we're talking about Solutum. Solutum is a company located here in Tel Aviv, Israel. Let's talk about what problem Solutum solves.
It's an easy answer. We want to eliminate plastic waste, so to solve the plastic pollution problem that we have in our world.
So plastic waste is a problem like in the sea or in landfills. What are you focused on?
Basically, we have plastic pollution everywhere. When I was first exposed to the magnitude of the problem, not just the problem, but the magnitude of the problem was when I saw what happened in the oceans. Because today in the oceans, we have plastic islands. Like when we throw the plastic to the environment and it ends up in the ocean, with the curves of the ocean, they find themselves concentrated at several spots, 5 spots. The size of each spot is about twice the size of Texas. So wow. Houston, we have a huge problem here. And so I came to realize and I came to be aware of those plastic islands and the fact that they are not going anywhere. So this is how I started my journey. And then obviously I learned how much plastic pollution we have in our planet in general, but it started from the oceans.
So can you briefly talk about how you solve the problem?
Yes, because we looked at the beginning of the plastic in the oceans, we had a dream to have a plastic that disappear in water. So this is what we did. A little bit maybe about my background. I'm a chemical engineer and I was the R&D manager at a plastic additive company. So I learned a lot about plastic, many different types of plastic, polymers, products, industries, and learned about the problem and learned about what properties you need to have in your material. So what we wanted to have is a material now that can replace plastic, but still have the same properties as plastic, but at the end will disappear, biodegrade in nature. So our material is a material that dissolve in water and biodegrade in water. It's not enough just to dissolve, obviously, in water. It's biodegrade. So it leaves no trace. So this is how we started with material that biodegrades in water. And as I said, as we move forward, we learned that we also need to take care of other pollutions, also in the landfill, soil, etc. So our material actually biodegrades in different kinds of environment as well.
So is your goal to make a plastic that manufacturers will use all over the world? Because as far as I understand, I don't know very much about the plastic pollution problem, but it's a worldwide problem. And the industry uses really a lot of plastic today.
A lot is understatement. Yes, a lot. That's a good point, by the way. One of our ways how to solve the problem is not just looking at the technology aspect of how it biodegrades at the end, but it actually how it fits to the industry. Because we didn't want to make now a product that you need to invest a lot of capex in the machine. We wanted a material that actually plug in to the plastic supply chain from the very first start of the raw material production, then the product production, all the way to the end customers. So this is one of the advantages of our material as well. This is how you can actually use it worldwide in different industries as well.
Okay, so I guess the industry itself will require this to be somewhat inexpensive, right? Plastic itself is an inexpensive product. How do you plan on addressing that?
Okay, this is how we address our product market fit, actually. Because yes, to replace plastic is a hard task, not just because of the technology, but obviously also because of cost. And today you have different materials in our planet that can replace plastic, but most of them are not scalable. They're not scalable maybe because lack of raw material. And in many cases, they're just too expensive, cost a lot more than the regular plastic. That is also the case with our material. Regular plastic, it's been with us for several decades, and our material is relatively new to the industry. It costs more, but then we need to see the final application. I'll give you an example.
Sure.
So our material, for example, has a very high barrier for oxygen. It's very important in cases like the food industry, because when you wrap food, you want to prevent oxygen entering through the packaging, because then you can prolong the shelf life of the food.
I guess that's what causes decay and bacteria to grow and the like.
Yes. It's not something that we invented. It's something that the industry are aware of, and they have different kinds of materials today that has a barrier to the oxygen. In this case, our material can offer sustainable solution while offering a barrier for oxygen or for oil or different kinds of barriers that is needed. And the final application won't cost more because we are replacing part of the packaging and we are adding a very important figure to the packaging. So this is one example. I want to give even a better example because I like it more. Our material is stronger than the regular plastic, which means that if you're using it as a packaging, you can reduce the thickness because it's stronger. So in this case, when you're just comparing raw material to raw material, maybe our material will cost more. Not maybe, for sure our material will cost more. But if you're looking at the final application, because we reduce the thickness, you're using less material, then the final application not necessarily will be more expensive.
I see. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about how the idea was born? How did you come to the idea?
So, as I said, I worked at the plastic industry. And I think, by the way, the plastic is a great product. I carry with me my reusable plastic bottle. And I think that plastic has lots of benefits. But when I was exposed to the problem, this is when I said, okay, there must be a solution. And in fact, it happened in a specific moment. I sat with my life partner in our garden, and I saw this plastic bag just in the air floating around. And I told him, listen, this is a disaster. Someone really needs to do something about it. And he looked at me and he said, Sharon, you're a genius. You're from the industry. Figure it out. So I literally took his advice and started figuring it out. So that was the aha moment.
So you're gonna prove him right.
Yes.
That you're a genius and you can solve the problem. So let's talk a little bit about the clean tech field in Israel. How's being in Israel help your company?
As almost everything in life, it can be advantage or disadvantage. Obviously, being in such a small country with such small market can be a disadvantage, but it pushes us all the time. I think I'm not unique in this. We're a startup nation. It pushes us all the time to really work with different markets globally. So this is one thing. I cannot just stick around and work with the Israeli players. I really need to work globally in order to extend. And you learn a lot while doing this. Having said that, you do have really serious players here in Israel. So you have players in Israel that you can test your product. And most of them are very open to try it.
You're saying manufacturers of plastics?
Yes.
Okay.
Manufacturers, sometimes even brands. So there is openness here in Israel to try different technologies.
Let's talk a little bit about your investment. Where is your investment from?
So our investors are a bundle of our precious angels, VCs, family office, and also very important strategic investors from the industry, whether from the raw material part or from our client part, which is very important for our company to grow.
So you find yourself getting input about your development, about your process, and through your strategic investors?
It's both input and actually a way forward. They help us in some cases. We understand better the market, the product. We can actually develop a product with them. Yeah. And also the Israel Innovation Authority grants, which have been supporting us from our very first day, even before we had the actual product.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. What role do patents or other intellectual property play in your company and your business strategy?
It was hard for me at the beginning to write a patent, I must say, because it was like giving away my secrets, giving away my babies. But as I was more mature, and maybe this is also something I want to share with early entrepreneur, that you have to, and the fact that you're putting out there your technology doesn't necessarily mean that someone will steal it, not at first. It actually shows your credibility. So when I went over this gap and I started writing the IP, I learned two things. One, it really helps with funding. Investors really like to see that you have this IP protection. It shows that also you have a strategy, also you have a technology, and it's also an assurance that someone else looked at your technology and said, there is something here. There is something, and it's not just someone. Our patents have been granted in different places in the world. Yeah, so it's really important assurance. The other thing is it helps you with the big players. Maybe today in our world when someone might steal your idea if you see it in a patent. But the big companies, the one that you actually want to play with them, to work with them, to have business with them, they won't steal, I hope, that they won't steal the technology of a small startup. They will be willing to work with a startup. They prefer to work with a startup they can afford themselves. And they see you more as a serious startup once you have actual patents and actual IP that they know that you can provide them.
Either through licensing or sale.
Exactly.
Okay, sounds good. What are your biggest hurdles moving forward as a company?
In Israel or in general?
Let's start with in Israel.
Okay. Obviously, in Israel, it's an interesting road to take during the past few years. Just yesterday, I was in a conference where Israeli VCs explain how they see investment here in Israel. During 2022, when we had judicial reform, that drove investors, mainly from the US, away. They didn't want to invest in Israeli startups.
Interesting.
Yes. They didn't know if Israel is going to stay a democracy country. So it was harder to raise money. That without even saying what happened to the market globally. Then came October 7. What was interesting is October 7 is the investors from the US suddenly came back. They saw Israeli startups, they saw their strength. They thought that we put aside the other issues, that Israel is going to stay democracy and we can move forward. And they started investing more. And we saw that very respectable VC like Sequoia even reopened here their office. So there were more and more investment from that side. Having said that, other foreigners obviously saw the war here. So what happened here with Iran. And in many cases, that was also hard to raise money, mainly from Europe-backed VCs. So it was more challenging.
So now are we over both of those hurdles?
Yes. And also during that time, I think that having said all what I said about this, if you show that you have a good product, it will be more difficult if you have a good product and you are based in the US or Europe. But even in Israel, if you have a good product, you have these hurdles, but eventually you will raise the money if you have the good product, etc. So these were the main hurdles here in Israel. Maybe another one is relatively new, the dollar. So the dollar came down, we raised money in dollars, we pay our salaries in shekels.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
So that can cut up your runway. So this is another hurdle.
For anyone who's listening and isn't familiar with the financial situation, I think that the shekel is very strong versus the dollar, and that the exchange rate is the lowest it's been. So you get the fewest shekel that you can get in the last 30 years or so, right?
Yes.
So it's a difficult sort of situation and a new, unique challenge to deal with.
Yeah.
Not only for startups, but for a lot of industry, I think, in Israel.
I'm sure that for a lot of industry, but for startup, usually we raise money in dollars and then we pay in shekels. So for us, it's very dominant. However, you could see that before that, and when the dollar was very strong, that was a benefit for us. We really need to hedge your funding because of this. Yeah.
So as a female founder, were there any unique challenges that you think you had?
Yes, I had challenges being a female founder. This is a field that obviously is very dominated by men. And as I learned, people like to do business with people like me. And most people in this industry are men. So they feel more comfortable, whether they're aware of this or not always they're aware of this, they feel more comfortable doing business with men. Once we have more and more female, I think that will have a better balance. So that is a challenge. I also heard that being a female, people ask you how you're not going to fail, while if you're a guy, people will ask you how you're going to succeed. And I listen to this in meetings and and it happens a lot, actually.
You're saying that might even be subconscious.
Yes.
That sort of question and that sort of inherent bias that exists.
Exactly. I would say that obviously being a female, I usually am different in the room. That can be a challenge, but it also can be an advantage. People will always notice me.
Okay.
In many cases, people will notice me more because I'm a woman in a room with many men. And it's not just being a founder, it's also the field I'm acting, a very heavy low-tech industry, bringing the high-tech to this industry. So it's also the industry and it's also being an entrepreneur.
The plastic industry in general, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
But I like being different.
Yeah, I think that there's an advantage for being different. That sounds good. What tips do you have for founders who are now starting with their new idea or the new company based on your experience?
So I would say on one hand, be aware of what you're worth and be aware that you know what you are doing and don't let others to let you doubt yourself. On the other hand, be humble and know that you have lots to learn. So that being said, my biggest tip is found a good mentor. I had 2 good mentors along the way. They're still with me till today. I still ask them questions from time to time and they help me a lot. That made a huge difference. They know the things that you don't know. They know the things that you even don't know that you don't know. They've done this before. And there are so many good people today that are willing just to give and are willing to be mentors. So that is my biggest tip for people that are doing this, mainly for the first time, but not just, to look for a mentor that you can look up to and will help you. So that's my tip.
That's great. That's a good tip. So where do you see Solutum in about a year or in about 5 years from now down the road?
In a year, we're going to accelerate our sales. That's our biggest target for this year. In 5 years, we want to have a bigger portfolio. We are working on other products as well. So we have now today our first product in the market. As I said, I want to accelerate, but we have a basic technology that we can use it for different types of products. So eventually we can go to different kinds of markets as well. So in 5 years, I really see that Solutum will accelerate and have more and more market share and help the environment, obviously, because this is our vision.
What's the status of the plastic pollution today? Is it increasing with time?
Without a doubt, unfortunately, it increased all the time. We do see that there is efforts from Europe, from India, from many different places, but the pollution is increasing and we cannot just stand and see what the regulation will do or what the politics will decide. We need to bring the technology out there to help this.
Let me ask you a question about maybe political a bit. Sometimes I think that we discuss first world solutions to problems that the first world can implement and impact pollution on that level. The question is, if a lot of the pollution is coming from third world and they're not going to be implementing these solutions, how much can we actually help the problem?
I actually think, and what I see is that those countries are actually really actively working on solutions. One of our main market today is India, and India is the world #1 plastic pollution. And that both private companies and the government are doing efforts and are looking how to solve those issues. They're not just sitting and waiting for, Europe or the US to bring the solution. They are actively doing it. So I do see it as a huge opportunity, actually.
Okay. I'm glad you're optimistic, and I think that you have to be in the position that you're in.
Have to. Agree.
Sharon Barak, thank you very much for your time. I'm glad we had the opportunity to talk, and hopefully we'll hear great things from your company soon.
Thank you very much.
That was Sharon Barak, the president and founder of Solutum. We hope you enjoyed this episode. There are many more to come. Do you have a great innovation or startup idea? We'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us by going to our website, jmbdavis.com. And if you go to jmbdavis.com/startup, you'll see we have a special site specifically made for startups to help startups protect their innovations. Please be in touch with us and find out how we can help you. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to bringing you the next episode.